Hey, welcome to Neighborhoods. I'm Tom Ritchie. So, got a question. Is Woodstock the next Burlington? I've heard it out on the streets. We're going to find out today, right when we return. Well, okay, so as mentioned, Woodstock is slated as the next Burlington, and we're going to discuss that today and maybe dispel, maybe even prove that Woodstock is on track with all the development that's happening. With me today, I've got Brad Hammond, the Development Officer for the City of Woodstock, and next to him I have John Goodman of Goodman Homes Limited, and I also have William Cattle joining me from the Woodstock and Ingersoll District Real Estate Board, and William is the President. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us on Neighborhoods.
Thanks, Tom.
So I don't know if you guys have heard it. I've certainly heard it that there is a good chance that Woodstock has the growth potential of what Burlington had. Brad, I'm going to take it to you first. I'm going to get Brad just to talk about what is your role with the City of Woodstock first.
Sure. So my role with the City of Woodstock is I'm Development Officer. There's 3 of us in our department that are charged with the role of economic development, which in layman's terms means trying to attract new businesses to the city. We've had a fair bit of success with that, and also trying to work with existing businesses to help them grow and thrive here in the city.
Well, there's no doubt that that you guys are doing an awesome job, and it's not just you. There's obviously a team.
It's absolutely
right? So it's not just Brad doing everything. There is someone else behind the curtain as well. And John Goodman with Goodman Homes. Obviously, you've seen the growth.
Yes.
Building permits are on the rise.
Yes, and especially this year is quite a bit higher than normal.
Right, and what do you attribute that to?
I think Toyota,
okay,
Cisco people.
Yeah.
Just a myriad of things.
Right. And William, obviously, William is not only the president of the Woodstock and District Real Estate Board, he's also a sales representative. So he's seeing it from both sides, both from sales and as the governing president for our board. William, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing great growth on the board, sales year over year, increase in sales. Mm-hmm. Inventory may be slightly down, but there's been no shortage of sales, and I think that's being received by all the realtors across the board. Right.
So let me go back to you for a second, Brad. Have you heard this, that Woodstock is on track with growth rate and potential like Burlington?
That's a rumor that's been around since I think the time when Toyota announced in June of 2005, that we're going to be the next Burlington, Mississauga, name your large, fast growth city. So that's a rumor that's been around, but I can dispel it today.
Okay.
Absolutely not true.
Not true. Okay. So there we have it. We're done our show. There we go. That's it, guys. Thanks for coming. No,
there's more to the story, but obviously, we've got solid growth in Woodstock. We're growing at a very steady rate, a very managed rate. But when you look at Milton or Burlington, that's more of kind of an uncontrolled growth, I would say.
Right. Okay. So Brad sent me some stats before we got started with today, and one of the things that was really interesting to me is that we have one that says that it's 60% bigger since 2005. That's correct?
Correct. Yes. Right? So that's geography or landmass.
Landmass. Okay.
Yeah.
But more than 2,500 new residential lots are planned or approved. Now, John, you gotta love that.
Well, yes, of course.
So, John, being one of the premium builders here in Woodstock, he what is it like trying to get a permit? Is it easier? Is it tougher?
Well, they've made more rules.
Okay.
And it has slowed down a little bit, but still, Woodstock is very, very good to deal with. They have a great staff down on James Street there, and we love it.
Yeah. Now, has that changed, John, in the past? Now, you've been building for how long now?
Since the early 90s.
Early 90s, okay. Yeah. So, in the early 90s, has it changed since then, trying to get those permits?
Yes, it has, because before we were such a smaller community that you would sort of put an application in one day and dig the next.
Right.
Now, mandated by the government, it's usually about a 2-week period now.
I see. And William, do you see that there is a growth in, let's say, industrial? Now, you're not covering very much of the industrial sales, but you keep an eye on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I watch it, but I don't actively work in that field.
Right.
But I have seen industrial increase and a lot of newer companies coming and a lot of employees transferring into the city, and I think that's been precipitating a lot of the current sales and growth. Okay, so
from the positive side, that's obviously a positive. What about the negatives? Is there any negative to this development? Are you seeing anything that's affecting the homes? I mean, excuse me, there's a lot more for sale signs, obviously.
Yep.
Is there as many sold signs?
I would say there is.
Yeah.
Well, for the fact that, like I said, inventory is down, which, I mean, you're seeing a lot more for sale signs, but you're getting a lot more sold signs because we're not having a large carrying inventory over months to sell.
Right.
And that being said, I think on a positive note or possibly a negative note, the increase in all this has made it more competitive on the new build side, which I'm sure, John, you experienced, right? And a lot of the builders are getting much more competitive.
Right. Well, I mean, for myself, I find that it seems a lot of people moving to Woodstock, they're looking at new homes.
Yes.
So right up your alley, John.
Yes.
Where a lot of the people that currently reside in Woodstock, they're looking at resale.
Correct.
Right? But when we look at the numbers, so 2012, at the end of the year, we had 1,070 sales.
Yep.
That's correct? Okay.
Yep.
In 2013, so far, we're at 889. Okay, so we're on track. Now, that's not to say, when we go back a couple years, we actually had a record year, I think it was 2009. The numbers were at 209, I believe. But all that aside, when we're looking to develop further, where is Woodstock planning to put all these new houses? Where are we developing currently?
Yeah, certainly the north end of the city, there's a lot of lots up there. Senator Homes is on the far side of Piddock Reservoir. They've got, I think, 2,200 new homes over there. But also north of Devonshire, so in the area of the new French Catholic school.
Okay.
There's lots in the south end of the city. Really, there's several pockets across the city where there's spots for new homes.
Okay.
And, you know, we shouldn't forget the former hospital site, which is in a
Right.
historic area of the city, or an older area of the city,
My
I should
area.
say.
Love that
Your
area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But you know, the planning's been done on that site, and sometime in the not too distant future, there'll be new residential units going up in that area as well.
Okay. So I guess one of the questions that I want to get into just before we go to break here is there was an article that was published about how Woodstock is trying to acquire some of Norwich Township's land. Now, we don't want to get in any fights. We don't have anyone, there's no one coming from the Norwich Township today anyway, so we're going to try and get the inside scoop on that, okay?
Yeah.
But does Woodstock need more land?
Absolutely, from our perspective, yeah.
Okay, so how are we going to get that?
Well, it's, you know, I guess we've got choices as a city that we can either try to acquire land within our boundaries that may have some other challenges to it, such as servicing.
Okay.
Or we can look at land outside of our boundaries, which is the discussion that's been ongoing with Norwich Township Council right now.
Okay. So is there any gray areas? Are there things that we can't cover? Do you have any information that we can tell our viewers that?
Yeah, no. You know, I think everything on that process has been, it's happened in the public, that it's happened at open council meetings.
Right,
so,
right.
you know, everything there is to say has happened in the public. You know, boundary adjustments, it's a give and take. So, not unlike selling a home, you need a willing seller and a willing buyer.
Correct.
And if that doesn't exist, there's probably no deal going to happen.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, Woodstock has always done a very good job of being transparent about what they do. And I know there's some residents that think there's no way, you know, there's so much stuff happening behind closed doors, and I don't think that's true at all.
No, not in this case anyway. At one time, boundary adjustments used to be able to happen behind closed doors. Just recently, there was a legal opinion that said, no, everything's got to happen in the public or in the light of day. So that's why back in July, we went to Norwich Township Council and said, there's a piece of land we've got an offer on to purchase, and we'd like to talk to you about boundary adjustment.
Okay. So we'll get into that a little bit more after we return. You're watching Neighborhoods.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying this episode of Neighborhoods, but I do invite you to check out our Facebook page where you can get information on past and future episodes. But not only that, you could win some great prizes from our sponsors like the Woodstock Fitness and Racket Club. Stay tuned right here on Rogers TV.
Hey, welcome back to Neighborhoods. If you're just joining us, we're discussing the economic development and planning for the city, talking about new homes and sales. And you know, I'm curious, Brad. Before we went to break, we got into you know, does Woodstock need more land? One of my questions, and I'm sure some of the viewers' questions, is what's going on downtown? Okay, because as we expand, it seems that the downtown area has become a slight ghost town, and I don't think it's as bad as I've seen in other cities. However, Woodstock, you know, being Woodstock, we're all concerned, and we want to know.
Yeah, no, you've hit the nail on the head. As you said, it's not as bad as many of our neighboring communities, but yeah, the downtown's still fragile. There's it's changing. There's less retail down there, more office, and you know, it's obvious there's vacancies in the downtown too. So. The city's just recently come through a strategic planning exercise. The public has said the downtown's important to us, to all of us, and we want to see a strong downtown. Now, at the same time, the city brought in a new community improvement plan, so the city's put some incentives out there for people to redevelop older buildings in the downtown, or maybe build on some of these vacant lots.
That's like, sorry, like the facade project where, because that's been in existence for a while, correct?
Yeah, correct. The facade loan program's been in existence for a long time. What we did was we surveyed communities in Southern Ontario, found out what others were doing, and we picked the best examples from each community. So I believe at this point in time we've got the most generous incentive program of any downtown in Southern Ontario. So it provides grants. It also provides loans, interest-free, 10-year interest-free loans for things like awnings, signage, lighting, signage, I've already said, facades, new residential units, some of the planning fees will grant back taxes if the value of your property goes up. So the Harvey Woods building is a good example.
Perfect segue, where I was just going to ask you about the Harvey Woods building.
Perfect, yeah. So that it's a former textile factory being redeveloped into residential units. Through the community improvement plan, they're in line for upwards to $200,000 in grants and loans.
Wow. Well, that's really good. And now, does this apply? So let's say I am Joe Investor and I decide I want to purchase a vacant building downtown. That building, I'm assuming, has to fall within the BIA.
No, not the BIA. There's a larger area.
A larger area?
Larger than the BIA area.
Okay.
That applies to the community improvement plan area.
Okay, so I come in, I decide I want to purchase said building on Dundas Street.
Yep.
Can I go to the city of Woodstock first before going through all the rigmarole of applying for a mortgage, et cetera, wasting my realtor's time? Can I come to the city of Woodstock and say, I'm looking at buying this building, what's available to me?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's happening every day now. So people are saying, I'm looking at buying this particular building. What could I be eligible for? So we'll go through what they're planning on, talk about the eligibility requirements, and at this point in time, we're lucky. There's lots of cash in the reserve fund that's going to fund this program. So as long as you're falling within the criteria for the program, there's a very good chance you're going to get approved for what you're applying for.
Okay, so you guys heard him. He said lots of cash, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if you have the desire to own a building downtown, you got to contact William right away because he's going to hook you up with the best building there is, right, William?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to help out.
Yeah. So, going into the Harvey Woods building, may I ask which corporation is it that's purchased the Harvey Woods
So
building?
it's a company called Homestead Christian Care. They specialize in affordable housing for people with disabilities. So maybe someone that has a severe form of diabetes, problems getting around, sight issues, whatnot. That form of disability. So obviously not able to work, so they're on government assistance. So it's affordable housing geared toward that. Now, Homestead Christian Care, we're lucky to have them in the community because they've got a great track record. The tenure of their tenants is somewhere 8 to 9 years, something like that, which is quite long for rental units. They do a good job of monitoring the building to make sure that there's not problems that could occur there, see who's coming and going and whatnot. So, and they're going to do a great job rehabbing that building.
What is the time frame? Because a lot of people ask me, they say, okay, well, that's great, they've just done their environmental studies, but we're talking 10 years down the road. And I say, I don't think so. Within the next couple years, we will see people living there. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, what does this mean? So they're not selling the units. They're going to be renting. It's going to be owned by the corporation. Units. They're going to be rental units. But with Harvey Woods redeveloped and refurbished, that brings a lot of life and rejuvenation to that downtown area, which once, for the last, I don't know how long, guys, but I would say a good 10 years, 15 years.
15, I think.
Has been vacant, right?
Yeah.
So what does that do? William, Van Ave is beautiful.
Oh,
right?
It is.
And it's always held really good property value. Now, those row houses that are on Van Ave, those were once housing units for the workers of the Harvey Woods building. So will that affect sales down that street even more?
I think it can't hurt. A lot of those
not to cut you off, but most people go, oh, affordable housing, great. What's that going to do to our neighborhood? So,
I think the perception is it cleans up the corner, and there's no doubt about it that the row housing right off the corner there has suffered because of the vacancy and the appeal of the neighborhood. And if anything, I think it'll benefit them. And a lot of people have been purchasing, as well, I'm sure those row housing and doing great renovation projects on them, and they're massive square footage, and they're doing a really good job at rejuvenating it all. And I think it'll only help clean up the area and increase values.
Now, as far as not just the president, I feel like I'm not just the president. I'm a member of the hair club thing, right? But not just the president, but as an agent. do you have more inquiries about downtown? Are people aware of the facade loan programs that are available?
What I've seen is investors are starting to come back again. I had several investors in the last 2 years that were pulling out of Woodstock and turning a blind eye to it and getting rid of their investment properties, where I've been seeing, fielding a lot more inquiries of investors returning to the city, which I think is a positive thing, and that's only been in the last, say, 6 to 8 months.
Right. And so now, John, I'm going to ask you: is there anything that we have Brad right here, so we can hold him down. But is there anything that you could see better? Is there any red tape that is affecting your ownership of Goodman Homes Limited?
No, I find, like I said before, Woodstock's usually very user-friendly for new construction and renovations. They do help a lot down at James Street, and haven't really come across too many problems.
Okay, so what is, you've got, I'm assuming a lot of people that are coming in from out of town.
Yes.
So people that are coming to work for Toyota, Cisco.
Yes.
And thanks, Brad, and your team for helping to get those here. But what are their biggest concerns working with you as a home builder?
Well, usually it's when they're living, 50 miles away, we only get to see them on a weekend or something like that, so then their time is busy. It's just a matter of getting together, and usually we're helping. We have a good sales team, so we do pretty good to,
Now, they're obviously seeing the value. I mean, because some of these people are coming from Kitchener, even Toronto.
Oh, Toronto, yes.
And they're coming in, and you're building them a premium home for $400,000 or less, or sometimes a little more, depending on what they want. But they must see the value.
Yes, I mean, probably to $100,000 to $150,000 more from Waterloo to Toronto, even more, $300,000, $400,000 more in Toronto. So they come here and they're very happy. They get if you're using what I like to say the local builders, they're getting probably a better product.
Right.
And that's for the local guys.
No, absolutely.
And
but what about property taxes? I mean, Woodstock's Brad, help us out here. Is there anything you can do?
That's a constant conversation.
Taxes?
we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And
High mill rate.
it is a high mill rate. And
why is that?
Well, there's a lot of costs that the city has that we have no control over.
Okay.
So we've got a number of our bargaining units, police and fire particularly, go to arbitration for settlement. So this is a third party, some guy in Toronto saying this is what the contract's going to be settled at. So the city has no control over that. Insurance costs up and up all the time. We're part of a two-tiered government, so we have costs associated to the county, with the county as well. So there's all these factors that are kind of beyond the city's control that we have no control over, virtually no control
and that's
over.
looking forward. I mean, obviously Woodstock has always done a very good job looking forward. One of the questions that I did want to get into is, can our infrastructure handle the growth, the boom that's happening? Are we prepared? Are we planning ahead to make sure that it's going to be there and in place?
Sure, yeah, that's all gone on now. So when a new residential lot gets approved for John, for example, the capacity at the wastewater treatment plant or at the water treatment plant on the clean water side has already been planned for. So that capacity is already planned for when John takes out a permit for a new lot. Sewage treatment plant, its capacity is good out till 2030 or 2031 now, without any expansions.
Right, because I did see that the projection for, it's not as high as you would think. When we're looking out to, I think it was 2031 is what Woodstock plans out to right now. Is that correct?
That's where our current population projections go.
Right, and what is the population projection for 2031?
Somewhere between 50 to 55,000.
Right, so it's not astronomical. It's not it's not 174,000 like Burlington. I think that's what their population is. But it's not crazy. We're not going to get in traffic jam. Although I do still get into traffic jams in downtown Woodstock, and I think it's because of the lights near the new Dairy Queen. Right? It's
where the bus terminal is.
Right? So maybe that's why, I don't know. But anyways, Woodstock, again, they do a great job. And you've just recently and are in the process of redeveloping the website.
The city's website, that's correct. Yeah.
So if you want to check out some of the changes and get information for the City of Woodstock, you can do so at cityofwoodstock.ca. But also, as far as if you're an investor or a development agent coming in from out of town, come to thecrossroads.com. That's correct? Come to thecrossroads.com?
Correct, that's the economic development website.
Okay, so when you go on there's some questions that they just kind of answer for you, and I think there's about 14 or 15 that...
something like that, yeah.
Very informative site. I suggest to check it out if you can. But guys, great discussion, and we're gonna pick it up right after break. You've been watching Neighborhoods with my guests, and we'll be back in just a second. Hello, welcome back to Neighborhoods. I'm Tom Ritchie. Joining me, I have Brad Hammond, Development Officer with the City of Woodstock. I have John Goodman from Goodman Homes Limited. And of course, William Cattle, who is the President of the Woodstock and Ingersoll District Real Estate Board. Guys, thanks again. So just before break, we were talking about taxes, and I don't want to stay on that because there's nothing we can do about it, right? The mill rate's not going to change. That's just the way it is. But John, let me ask you a question. When people, when we were on break, John was just mentioning that people moving from Toronto, they sell a very expensive, in some cases, just a condo.
Yes.
And they come here and they build a house 3 times the size,
That's right.
half the price,
Yes.
but they still complain about
Still
the taxes.
complain about the taxes,
And
yes.
how do you deal with that? I mean, do you have to deal with it personally, or is it your sales?
Not really,
sales
but I
staff
try
that's taking
to explain to them so that they feel comfortable coming to Woodstock, and I explain to them you have to look at the service you're getting in Woodstock as compared to maybe that you got in Toronto.
Right.
I mean, just garbage and the arenas, the hot, and everything else that is included with your taxes. And then after a while, they do realize that there actually is not that bad.
Right.
You know, that's a good point, John, because I don't think people generally realize that of every tax dollar that you pay, if you took all of the taxes you paid in a year, the city survives on about 9 cents out of every tax dollar,
Wow.
which is pretty thin.
So where's the rest of it going?
Well, I mean, other levels of government.
Okay. So they're gobbling it up on us. They're taking.
Well, it's the thing is your municipal taxes is the closest to you, right? You're writing that check, or you're seeing it come out of your bank account every month
Fair
or whatnot. Whereas when you're buying a meal or a TV or whatever, it's just kind of added onto the price, right?
Right.
So people don't think about those taxes in the same way they think about their property taxes.
Okay, so you're saying that the city itself gets about 9. So we're saying about 10%. 9-10%.
Something in that neighborhood, yeah.
Is that a standard? Is that a norm compared to other cities, or do they?
Yeah,
get
well,
more,
sorry, that number's not unique to Woodstock. So this is a number that came out of the Municipal Association for Ontario.
Okay.
That they're saying, out of every tax dollar that the public pays, about 10% goes to the municipality.
Right.
And yet, who do you have more contact with? You have municipality. Every day of your life,
Right.
You can come in contact with the city, 50 or 60 times a day, whether it's stoplights, going to the arena.
Right.
what
So
have
we
you.
can see our tax dollars then.
You can see your
We
tax
can see
dollars
them
at
there.
work, yeah.
William, I just wanted to ask you, what are you finding is the most popular as far as development right now? You represent some builders.
I do, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
What are they wanting? I know I have clients that they're single families, right? They want a single family home. However, the row units and the condominiums are on the rise here in Woodstock. And do you think that's because people are moving in from a place where they're accustomed to living in a condominium, or?
You bring up a very good point there. I would agree with you. I think it's what people are exposed to in other cities. I mean, in my new builds, I'm seeing a lot of traffic, Kitchener, Cambridge, Hamilton area, which they're accustomed to row houses, semis, that sort of thing. I do find, though, like when you start acting dollar value and you look at what you get, that I do think that single detached are still a great value in the city.
Right.
And I think that if you can get people out of that mindset of a row house or a town or apartment or high rise, that they're the single detaches are very attractive.
Right. Well, it's certainly, it's a better value than what they would be doing in Toronto. So
Absolutely.
we'll be right back with more Neighborhoods. Hey, welcome back to Neighborhoods. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but if you've been joining us through the entire discussion, you'll see that Woodstock has some great plans for future development. I'd like to thank my guests, Brad Hammond, John Goodman, and William Cattle. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. And if you have any questions about this episode, feel free to text me. Information will be on the screen. And if you have any questions or concerns, or you'd like to maybe suggest an episode, feel free to shoot me a text, and we'll go from there. Thanks again for joining us on Neighborhoods. I'm Tom Ritchie. See you next week.